we're ready and are you guys ready? 2, 1, live.
A pleasant good morning to everyone. I am SVG Jules Boucher, the second Vice President of the Public Service Union. I would like to welcome all the representatives from the various media houses here with us today. Public Service Union decided to call this press conference today to bring clarity to some misinformation shared by the Deputy Prime Minister at the time, Honorable Montgomery Daniel, regarding the meeting that the union held with its members at the Printry Department. Also to bring to the public's attention some issues that the union is currently trying to address that clearly is an infringement on the rights of our members. And on the panel with me today, beginning from my right, I have Mr. Elroy Boucher, the President, Sister Shelley-Ann Alexander Ross, our General Secretary, and Sister Gwyneth Stoddard, our first Vice President. So I would now ask Sister Alexander Ross to begin our conversation today.
Thank you, Sister Boucher. And as was mentioned before, the main issue we want to address is some statements, as she rightfully said, made by the acting Prime Minister at the time, Mr. Montgomery Daniel. And before we get into what exactly transpired on the 16th of May 2024, context is important, and it's important for the general public to know, and for our members to know, and for the ministers to know, including the Cabinet Sec. I know that she would be listening, that the union is the representative body for the members at the government printry. And the members have been calling for a meeting for us to come because they had issues that needed to be addressed immediately. And this goes back as far as 2017, that we have been writing to the management of government printry and within recent times to the Cabinet Secretary. Our last letter was sent in May of this year last week, asking for a meeting to address the number of issues that the workers would have outlined. So what the minister attempted to do is to give the general public the idea that we didn't follow protocol, we stormed in. So we want to bring clarity to all of that. He made mention to laws, that we have laws and we must follow laws. And we are going to make reference to the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, that says that the members have a right to representation, they have a right to join a union, they have a right to form a union, and they have a right to be heard. And this is what the workers wanted when we went there on the 16th of May 2024. So we are going to go through what transpired, but I just wanted to bring that briefing to let you know that the union have been trying to meet with management to discuss the issues that the workers are having. You talk about productivity and you talk about us disturbing the work. Now we know the importance of having a conducive environment for workers to be productive. And if workers have issues, and we will go through some of them, whether infrastructure or psychological issues that is hindering their progress in terms of productivity, and they have called for their representative body, and you basically have been denying them that fundamental right from since 2017. All right, so we just wanted to bring clarity initially to that, because context is important for persons who are listening to understand the reason why, the fundamental reason or the foundation why we're here. So I'm going to leave Brother Boucher to go through the actual detail that we did indicate that we were going to meet. We did say the members called for us, and we responded because trade unions by right, we are a workers' organization, and when workers called for us, we are obligated to respond. So the meeting was scheduled for 1:30. We did start the meeting, and what Mr. Montgomery Daniel did say in his statement, it is not true. We are going to refute that, and we're going to give you the details as to what transpired and why we see the need to let persons know from our perspective.
So the facts as they are that preceded the meeting being held with the workers at the printery. One, the PSU have been requesting permission to meet with the printery staff as far back as 2017. And each time we are being told that permission was denied. And these meetings, these requests were made to have meetings at the workplace. And again, each time we are being told permission is denied. This type of behavior only started with the current Cabinet Secretary, Scotty Barnwell. Previous to that, we never had a problem meeting the workers at the printery. All of the previous Cabinet Secretaries did not choose to micromanage the printery. The manager of the printery, we would normally write the government printer who would allow the meeting to be held either during a staff meeting or sometime at 3 o'clock, within an hour and a half. So when the CAPSEC, when Ms. Barnwell became the CAPSEC, everything changed. And what we discovered is that when we a decision, never happened before. We have to explain that we have been trying our utmost best to get the permission to have the meeting. And I had to do with raising the issue of having discussions or consultation with the workers regarding pension reform. This was happening at a time when the Public Service Union was going through nothing with public servants through persons. In fact, to have discussions with the workers to inform them of the proposed plans or the public service pension system. So the information was critical for to let workers know the importance of pension system. So at times we work in collaboration with that institution so that the information is shared and we get the word. Cabinet Secretary continue to deny the workers the opportunity to have the issues being heard at the workplace. In 2024, the workers got fed up with it and they insisted that we come to the printery, just as a form of industrial action. The workers from the job call a strike. They decided that's not the way to go because a meeting is only going to take like an hour and a half and there is no need to have the workers withdraw their services for any extended length of time. We proceeded at And as I've said, those issues were sent over via letter to the Cabinet Secretary. Mr. Daniel stated that the President stormed the printer. I'm not sure if Montgomery Daniel understands what is the meaning of storming a building. What does it mean to storm a building? And if he does, then I'll take it that he's just being dramatic. Because storming a building speaks to a large number of persons forcefully and violently entering a building or a compound somewhere and create an issue to take over the building. That is not what we are about. There were only 7 of us at the meeting, 7 executive members. It's not 100, it's not 50. And the workers were waiting, and in fact, many of the workers came out and escorted the executive into the building. So again, it's very confusing to me, his use of the word storm the printer. So I'm not sure if he really, as I've said, have a full appreciation of what that phrase actually means. He proceeded to say that there was an agreement by management and the union to hold a meeting at a particular time. That is untrue. We did not request a meeting. So there could be no agreement to hold a meeting at a particular time. Given the action that we were taking, we informed the government printer when we will be meeting. And that time was 1:30. Anything other than that may have been the decision taken by the CAPSEC or the government printer, which really has or had no impact on us, because we were determined at the staff instructions to have the meeting at 1:30. That is why we did not make a request for permission to have the meeting. The meeting was requested by the workers. There was no disruption of work. And he stated that the manager asked the president to come to his office to hold discussion. As I've said, I do not know when that happened, because the manager of the printer, the government printer, never came down from the upper floor to have any discussions with me. He never came down. So unless he assumed that I have to understand sign language or something, I don't know how you're supposed to engage in a discussion if you have an issue. So the entire conversation held by the Honorable Montgomery Daniel is filled and laced with nothing but untruths and somewhat melodramatic. Maybe it is to create an impression. I want to reiterate what Shellyan said. The Public Service Union, and their international laws govern how we operate. The government is a signatory to different conventions that determine people's right to belong to a trade union. Our own constitution clearly states that it is your freedom to join a trade union of your choice. So if you join a trade union, what do you expect from a trade union, if not representation? The ILO Convention also speaks to that right. There are standards, international standards, that are set by the ILO. And it refers to the rights of trade union and representatives with respect to the workplace. ILO standards on rights concerning freedom of association and industrial relations. It says workers' representatives should be granted without undue delay access to the management of the undertaking, and 2 management representatives empowered to make decisions as will be necessary for the proper exercise of their function. That is, if you have an issue at the workplace, you should be able to write to the management and have a meeting to have that discussion. It's an international standard set by ILO, which is an agency of the United Nations. It also states that the trade union representatives who are not employed in the undertaking, but whose trade union has members employed therein, should be granted access to the undertaking, and this is during working hours. These are clear international standards. And like I said, we spend millions becoming a member for a year in the UN Security Council, sitting on not becoming a member, sitting on the UN Security Council. Millions. So we attach the importance of acknowledging what the United Nations represent. But just like the UN Security Council is an aspect of the United Nations, the ILO is also an aspect of the United Nations. And so the international standards set by the ILO for all countries that are members must be respected. We don't have this problem throughout the service. It is mainly at the printry with the cabinet secretary. And it is not for lack of trying that we have not tried and have this resolved. Because during 2017, I think during the time, I have gone to that office on no more than 4 occasions to try and meet with the CAPSEC to have an understanding why is she being so anti-union and anti-labor and anti-worker. And every time I go, and I tell the secretary, Mr. Boucher is here, because they want to know who you are and why you're here. Mr. Boucher is here from the Public Service Union. It is either she's on a call, and we'll get back to you, leave your number, which call never come back, or either she's out or she's preoccupied or something. I have never had the opportunity to meet her to discuss these issues.
Did you ever write her?
Never had.
Not just
Of course, we wrote her several times. That's what I'm saying. The last place I met, Dr. Gonzalez had a book launching, not the last one, I think it was the one when he launched the book, the Political Economy of the Labor Movement. I met the CAPSEC there and tried to engage her in a conversation. I said, I've been trying, going out of my way to try and meet with you. And she bluntly said, I don't want to talk about that now. I said, but if I come to your office, you don't want to talk about it. When are you going to talk about it? She was very dismissive. Even though I insisted that conversation must be held. So it is not for lack of trying to get that office to understand that these are international standards that must be respected. We don't just up and decide to go, why haven't we done that at Braxa or some other department in the public service? We have gone throughout the entire public service dealing with issues related to pension reform and have been accommodated by the heads of department because they understand the importance for the information to the workers, one, and the importance to respect international labor standards. After all, we are being governed by a labor government. And what is quite troubling, the CAPSEC behavior comes out of the office of the Prime Minister, who prides himself on being an advocate for the workers. Always make that point. I'm a labor man. I'm an advocate for the workers. But out of your very office is oppression for the trade union and the workers. And those are the reality. Those are the facts laid down there. CTAW have a collective agreement that was signed in 2005 with the government. And within that agreement is this very provision that access must be granted to representative of the union to come to the workplace to hold meetings. Because this provision will normally be within a collective agreement if you have an agreement with the entity. Because it's part of the trade union function to meet with the workers, not after hours, not occupying their lunch. It's supposed to be a collaboration between management and the trade union, working together to achieve the company's objectives, which should not be at the expense of the worker. So our interest is in ensuring that the worker is productive and the company does well. In this case, the public service. Not in creating disruptions. If people are antsy about their pensions, we need to inform them that they don't have to worry because the government cannot do anything to their public service pension. It is protected by the Constitution. People need to know all of that before they run and take all retirement to try and save their pension. So you don't be an oppressor in that sense. You have to be an enabler in order to ensure that workers are happy and they are more productive. So that's the issue as it relates to the printry. I would say one thing, the workers, when Montgomery made his statement, I sent the voice note, the recording to the workers, and they had a meeting. And they sent me the results of their meeting. So if there's to be clarity on the issue, on the situation that developed at the printry, there needs to be a proper thorough investigation which would include hearing from the workers of the printry who are and are still being deprived of certain information on serious matters concerning them. Secondly, after the president arrived at the printry, shortly after members of the executive met with the government printer, the president met with the workers on the outside conversation with the said executive. The workers were the ones who demanded that they have the meeting with their union and decided that they want union inside the building. So with the union, the workers were determined to have the long overdue meeting and told the president in no uncertain terms that the meeting was happening today. The workers in the printry feel disrespected by both the government printer and the cabinet secretary as to why over the years under this government printer and CAPSEC they have been denied their fundamental rights to meet with their union. And no thanks to them both, we are still the last to hear about the pension reform plans, and the workers need an explanation. Why should workers suffer because of a personal differences towards the president of the PSU by either the CAPSEC or the government printer? Because they assume that is what it amounts to. The so-called disruption in the printry never occurred. The meeting was quiet with 90% of the staff in attendance, some of which are not even members of the union, and by the end of the meeting signed up to join as they understood the importance of union representation thanks to the union educating them. The printers even requested that there be more frequent visits to the printry to highlight other concerns affecting them, and they expressed their gratitude to the union being there as they were totally in the dark on pension reform issues as well as their rights as public servants. Is the cabinet secretary and the government printer afraid of what will come to light once the worker starts speaking? And that's what they sent after they would have listened now. Okay. The other matter I want to touch on briefly, still on the issue of representation. And I've said the Public Service Union is recognized in the Constitution of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in Section 77(1) and 88 as the union representing the interests of public servants. And oftentimes, workers are called up to meet with the Service Commission Board. And when they are called before the board, or they request a meeting with the board to address a particular grievance or an issue they have at the workplace, they will come to the union and they will request representation, because sometimes they themselves are not confident that they can explain themselves properly. And every time the union go to that meeting, the board insists that the union cannot attend the meeting. The union cannot represent these workers at the meeting. So we are really asking again for the government to respect the importance of the public service union as a union representing the interests of public servants, and to cease from denying workers their rights to be represented. People have a choice. It's a fundamental right to have somebody to represent them, whether it's a lawyer or they go down on the street and they meet somebody, they pick them up and they walk with them. It's their right to be represented in any matter. That's why you have lawyers. If you think that you can't argue your case, you go and hire a lawyer. The union is there, so the worker thinks that they have difficulties or challenges putting their case before the commission, if it's a disciplinary matter or a matter of a similar nature, then the union that represents them have that right to be there with them. And that right is being denied. And again, all of this is happening under a Labour government. And traditionally, Labour governments are friendly with trade unions and work closely with trade unions. This government, may I remind listeners, came into office on the back of the trade unions, the working class. The meetings were held right at the Public Service Union down there during the World Black Revolution, with Lansford Weeks as the president of the union. Dr. Gonsalves was having a meeting with them there. When they formed the ODD, it is members of the union executive who were part of that. So the government came into office as a result of the action of the working class. And suddenly the trade unions now become enemy number one. And their rights, the right of workers to be heard, the right to be represented, has become an issue. And it's not only the Service Commission's board that is creating this problem. This problem is also created within the different departments. I don't know if you remember recently, as in last year, the case of a lady at the hospital that was strip searched, her privacy violated, totally embarrassed at a time when she was menstruating, humiliated. She's a member of the Public Service Union. She was a member of CTW. And we wrote to have a matter addressed. Our lawyers even wrote. And Mr. Knight said, under no circumstances will you represent her. She must be represented by the CTW. You don't have the right to tell anybody who they choose to represent them. We wrote to the Minister of Health, Honorable Jimmy Prince, who referred the letter to the Attorney General, who responded and said that the union cannot represent the worker, regardless of what the Constitution says. It's very same Attorney General, who by all expectations seemed to be indicating that he wants to represent people in South Leeward. You want to represent people, but denying other people the right to be represented. And I say to our people, as Vincent, we have to open our eyes. You see, anytime you see your rights start being denied and set aside, you have to pay careful attention. I often say we give politicians the power to govern in our best interests, not to abuse, not to take advantage of us. And when you see signs that those rights come under threat, we have to start paying serious attention. I quickly want to touch on the issue of the vaccine mandate. And the fact that in May of 2023, I think the World Health Organization declared the pandemic over. Our public health emergency was based on a pandemic being declared. The vaccine mandate came into being because of our public health emergency being declared and a pandemic being declared. So you would expect that when the WHO declared in May of 2023 that the pandemic was over, all countries, it's hard to think of what reason that they would have had to keep their public health emergencies going when it is based on the pandemic. There's no longer any pandemic. How is it that we in St. Vincent still have a public health emergency for COVID-19? And we're still under a public health emergency. It has not been declared over by the Honorable Jimmy Prince. Certain category of workers, the mandate as it affected them, the mandate on them to be vaccinated has been discontinued. But the vaccine mandate is still in place for healthcare workers. What reason would the government have to still have us under a public health emergency for COVID-19? I don't know who I don't even hear the word COVID-19 anymore, so people just free going about their business. Still have us under that emergency and still have part of the public service under the vaccine mandate. I ask the government why? Why is this the case? And I really find it difficult in understanding what reason they would have for still doing that. So the persons who want to work in the Ministry of Health, especially at the hospital, the student nurses who want to go into that field, they have to be vaccinated. Even at a time that we are seeing we are now seeing some of the adverse effects that are happening with respect to the very vaccine, they have to be vaccinated. Can that be right? The Honorable Jimmy Prince made a statement in Parliament a few weeks ago when asked to apologize for the vaccine mandate and what happened to workers who were being dismissed. And he said that the workers were the government never fired anybody. It's a insensitive and a shameful statement from a governing politician. It's a statement that shows that you have no empathy for the sufferings and the hardship that this piece of legislation put over 300 plus workers through. I want to state this legislation is the most wicked, most evil piece of legislation that ever passed in the House of Parliament. And for the Minister of Health, under whose hand all of this came, this mandate, to make such a statement, it's very sad time indeed. Very sad. People have suffered. Recently, Kingsley DeFreitas spoke about his ordeal. But there are many others like him. Dr. Keyser spoke about a lady who died in her testimony, or her affidavit in the case. But there are others like her. People have suffered. They have suffered health and they have suffered financially and they continue to suffer. And for a government that refuses to acknowledge the suffering it has brought on people, it's the most callous type of behavior that you have seen in a very long time. Dr. Gonsalves have a way of asking the people for forgiveness at certain times. And I commend him on that. Because you need to get to the point where you're humble enough to recognize that you have wronged people. But the one thing that he needs to ask for forgiveness for is this vaccine mandate. Not him alone. Him along with his entire cabinet, including the CMO. Ms. Keyser Beach. All of them need to ask the Vincentian public for forgiveness for what they did. Not double down in denial. And all of this action by the government goes back to the earlier statement I made. It is a constant eroding of our rights by politicians who we empowered to govern us in a responsible and a just way. And as Vincentians, we need to pay attention. What next will they do? If you cannot acknowledge the wrong that you have done, it is more than likely that you can repeat it and do worse than that. And our people need to pay attention. Don't get bogged down in the politics, the partisan politics of the day. Think about our interests. And as a trade union, we have to advocate against all of these things and advocate for the rights of our people and the protection of those sacred rights. And not get carried away with partisan politics. These are important times for us to pay attention. And I rest. Thank you.
Okay, we will now take any questions from the media.
Mr. Boucher, good morning. Robertson Henry, Searchlight, also Reuters International. I was trying to clarify the timeline regarding the issue involving the print rate and the behavior, as you put it, of the cabinet secretary. One, in the note received from the workers after the meeting, mention is made of a meeting between, and tell me if I'm wrong, union executive and the manager of the printery before you met with the workers on that same day. Is that what they indicated?
Right. I think what happened there, like I said, some of the members went down to the printer early. I mean, the meeting is slated for 1:30. And there are a number of us who were at the meeting with the NIS, which went up until after 1. We got down there at 1:30. So my understanding, because I was not there, is that when they went, my understanding is they were told that they only have something like 5 minutes to have a meeting of some sort like that. They can speak to that. That is my understanding. But all of that, I didn't pay attention to it because I know what we have stated, and that was what we were about to actually execute.
You make mention of, well, like in any place, there's always be issues, whether it's health, safety, whatever. In your letters to management and also to the cabinet secretary, were those concerns highlighted? in
Which
those
concerns?
letters? The workers' concerns.
No,
Identifying
right.
citizen health and
The letter that was sent highlighted all of those. I don't know, Shalon, we have
Yes,
a copy
we
of
did.
it here. After the meeting, we gathered all of this information as reported by the workers, and a letter was promptly sent off to the CAPSEC, listing all of the issues and asking for a meeting to have them addressed. That was done.
you have not received a response as yet?
No, we haven't.
Good morning, Dale Silver, the Vincent newspaper. I just wanted first off to get some clarity. Mr. Boucher, in your presentation, you were saying that at a point the government printer was gesturing to you. This would have been after you had met with the workers, or was this as you were entering to go meet with them?
While I was speaking with the workers, yeah, as I started the meeting, I think that office, that top floor is when you're sitting in the print, when you're standing in the print, you talk, and you can see it's right at the very top this of the floor. So he was doing some gesturing. I really didn't understand what he was saying.
My other question to you would now be, and it was also reported that the cabinet secretary would have summoned the police.
Yes.
I think you said that they would have arrived after you would have left. Has anybody from the RSVG PF contacted the PSU or yourself or any other member of the executive stating anything about what transpired on that day?
No one has contacted me. I was reliably informed that they were called and told that there was a disturbance at the printery. In fact, someone who I spoke to said that when they spoke to the government printer, he declared that there was no disturbance. So the police was called not by the government printer, but by the CAPSEC, who said that there was a disturbance. The government printer reported there was no disturbance because rightly there was no disturbance. So when they came, there was no disturbance. Well, we were not there, you understand? But they also understood, I was informed that there was no disturbance. They were called based on that, as I've been told.
Good morning, Kenton Chance, Eyewitness News and the Caribbean Media Corporation. I'm also a little unclear about the timing. You said that you had a meeting for an hour and a half?
But it lasted, it started at 1:30 and finished about 2:45, something like that.
Okay,
Or
so-
1:30, 2:30. Yeah, we were on half somewhere around
So
there.
the same about the police being called. When did this happen?
I don't know. When we left, around about 2:45 or so, when we left, as I got home, one person got home, we were called from the workers at the printer and said 7 police turn up, stated that they were called and given the information that there was a disturbance at the printer.
But did they say what is the nature of the disturbance?
No.
So then it's an assumption, a presumption that it had something to do with the union. Did anybody ever contact the union about this alleged disturbance?
Well, what I know, I can only follow from a report that was done by A&M, who informed me that he called the police and he called the government printer and was informed by the police that yes, they were called regarding a disturbance at the printery by persons, and the government printer who verified that the CAPSEC called the police.
So this media report says that the government printer said that the CAPSEC said that she called the police. I'm trying to understand.
We may read it to thing. The way the story is written, the government printer said he did not call the police, and the CAPSEC did what she had to do. With-
Also?
Yeah, she was leading the delegation.
Okay, well.
Okay, when we arrived, the admin rep for the area, for the print
Maybe you can
trees.
tell us your name and designation. Oh, no, it was mentioned before.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yes, when we arrived, the members were really, really anxious to see us, and I went inside to speak to one of the ladies, and Anson, who is the admin rep, he patted me on the shoulder and he said, Sister Stoddard, we need to go upstairs to talk to the person in charge. So we went upstairs and he said, you all were supposed to come at 12:30 and it's after 1. And we were only allowing you all to come and meet with the staff for the lunch hour. So I said, but we were at NIS, we couldn't make it before that. We were dealing with some important issues. He said, well, we can't do anything to that. So I asked, so what about if we go outside of the building? He said, no, that is taking away the people's time as well. So I called my sister here and I told, because she was with vouchers, I told her what happened and she said she will get back to me, but she did not. So the young worker had a conversation with the gentleman, Mr. Commission, and she came and said, he said we could only have 5 minutes. I said, what can 5 minutes do? So we went back downstairs and I started having a conversation with the people, and the young lady said, started, I'm timing you, 5 minutes is up. So I said, I told them why we were late. And well, actually late for the 12:30, as the man said, we should have been there for 12:30. But in truth and in fact, the meeting should have been at 1:30. But he was only allowing us for 12:30, saying it's a lunch break for the workers. But the workers want more than that time. So when the 5 minutes was up, we went outside, the workers came outside. They came outside to have conversation with us, and then is when the president arrived.
You mentioned 12.
Sorry, Mr. You had a chance. She's responding to my question, sorry. So you said that you went outside after the 5 minutes was done.
Yeah.
So the staff of the executive went outside.
Yes.
The staff and the staff of the, sorry.
Not everybody.
I may correct myself. So the executive of the union who were there for the meeting, after the 5 minutes, you left and went outside the print.
Yeah.
And some of the members of the staff of the print came outside to continue the
Yes,
meeting.
yes.
And I'm trying to remember what Mr. Boucher said. Is it that those staff members invited you to come back
inside? Yes, when Mr. Boucher came.
So you went back inside and continued?
Yes.
And during the time of the meeting, did the management of the printry approach you and ask you to leave or anything like that?
No. As Mr. Boucher said, he came out. If like where we are here, you look up and he's up there. So he's looking over. So he was like making sign and saying, Mr. Boucher, but Mr. Boucher was talking, so he.
So beyond saying Mr. Boucher, did he say anything? Did he say you guys have to leave?
No.
And during the time that you stayed there, you said, I think Mr. Boucher said they stayed. I'm just trying to get these timelines correct, right? You stayed from 1:30 till about 2:45.
Yeah.
And during that time, nobody approached you again and told you to leave or told the workers to report back for duty?
No.
And neither did the police turn up at that time?
No.
Okay. I was just trying to get that timeline correct. I have a few more questions, if you permit me. Mr. Boucher, you read from something on your phone. May I ask, you said it was sent to you?
Yeah, by the workers.
By the workers, but was it signed? Is this some sort of formal documentation?
No, it's not signed.
Have you asked the workers if they're willing to issue a statement, a signed statement, to say, well, this is what happened, so that, we've heard from the Deputy Prime Minister, we've heard from the union. Have you spoken to the workers about whether or not they'd be willing to sign a joint statement, or issue a separate statement to say, this is what transpired at the printry, and we invited, whatever they want to put in there. Have you
No, I have not asked them to do that. I have not.
Do you think that would be useful to clarify?
I guess it will be useful it will be useful in as much as it will authenticate what was sent to me. In as much as that, yeah.
Well, Mr. Boucher, before I go to my first question, what Kenton just asked there, if I know the structure of trade unions pretty well, you have shop stewards at the workplace?
Yes, we do.
Okay. One, that note, I did refer to it, Kenton referred to it also. Was that sent by one of the shop stewards?
It was not sent directly to me by one of the shop stewards. We have one shop steward there. I think one on a.
But the shop steward is supposed to be the union's representative
Right,
on the
right.
workplace, at the workplace.
Right, but the one of the persons I've been in contact with at the workplace. I don't think I have the shop steward information like that. But the person I've been in contact with assured me that this came out of the meeting. And I spoke with the shop steward just this week, and he verified what was said.
Going back, the lady there mentioned there were 2 times at play here. She mentioned that the printer, the manager of the facility, said that the meeting was scheduled for 12:30 or thereabout and came late. And you mentioned 1:30. Did the manager of the facility inform you all by writing that the meeting is so and so date, so and so time?
No, please.
Sorry?
No.
So it's like he assumed that since 12:30 is the workers' lunchtime, that would be the time for the meeting. Is that what I am picking up there?
No, I think some correction is actually needed there.
Remember, we informed.
Yeah, we informed them. The manager, I think, sent back a letter stating, given some time frame of 12:30. I really didn't pay attention to the letter because, as I've said, we were informing them, not asking for permission.
I want to
Yeah.
clarity.
But there was a letter that was sent in response to our informing them that we will be having the meeting at 1:30.
And he wrote back saying 12:30.
He wrote back giving a time somewhere around their lunchtime.
Are you finished, Robert?
Go ahead.
Based on the trade union laws, workers, and you might have addressed this before, just for clarity, are workers entitled to a time during their work hours to have a meeting with their trade union? Or do they
Yes,
have to only do it during their lunch hour?
No, it could be any time.
the international standard, as I've said, set by ILO and in their conventions clearly specify that trade unions must have access to the workplace to have meetings with the workers. Trade unions must be allowed to display paraphernalia on their bulletin boards. Trade union reps, the section shop stewards or section reps must be given time off to attend union functions. So it lay out a list of the rights of the trade union in engaging the establishment. However, it is not to say that you ignore the operations of the entity, because sometimes we write and the response, different departments, like I say, sometimes they have their meetings during their meeting with the staff. So if they're meeting with the staff, which normally happen around 2 o'clock, they will invite you in. Or they arrange for the meeting to be held at 3, whether it doesn't matter the department, that is the practice, right? We go in and we meet with the workers at the workplace because that is the standard that is set, that is international law, that is the standard that is set. We are now in the process of taking as a draft labor law that covers all of those things. We don't currently have a law that speaks to those type of activities. So what obtains is what the ILO, the standards that are set by the ILO.
So it's more of convention than law.
Yes,
But since the government
international.
But since the government is a signatory to a number of ILO conventions. Those international standards are applicable.
Yeah,
Correct,
yes,
yes,
some
they
say
are.
they're applicable in the absence of
And they're
the,
obligated to.
in the absence of the local laws that will give effect to different things. Those are applicable. That's why if you have a collective agreement, you put it in there, okay, because there isn't a law that speaks directly to it except for the international laws, right? And I don't know, most people seem not to know about those instruments by ILO are legal in themselves. Most people don't really seem to know that.
You made mention or you allege since the current cabinet secretary assumed office that there has been, and that is my word, some kind of friction between the PSU and her office. Have you tried to identify what could have brought this friction about? Have the union attempted to seek some kind of mediation? I'm deliberately using this to understand what is wrong, where the misstep could have been, and how, and if there is one, how it could be corrected. I'm only asking those questions.
That's understood.
Because at the end of the day, the workers' welfare is the number one priority. So can you just help?
Well, we have not directly sought mediation in that sense. I think the closest that would have come to that would have raised this issue with the service commissions. We had a meeting there sometime a few years back, and what they basically said is that they cannot dictate the decisions that are being made by the cabinet secretary, right? And so they don't have any jurisdiction over that. If we ask us for a meeting, we can facilitate, and that has been facilitated on numerous occasions. Like I say, I do not know what is the cause for this type of behavior, because the CAPSEC was formerly the chief person officer, and we never had any issues. I really don't know what is the reason for it. Because I've tried and make some interventions by having some dialogue, and that has been more or less turned down. So if there is something there,
You're not giving enough attention.
I really don't know what it is. I really don't know what it is.
You mentioned service commission, and earlier you spoke of a matter where a lady was strip searched at the hospital. I have my personal view on that, and trust me, I know how I would have dealt with it. But the question there, which is troubling to me, puts in my limited knowledge of the law, is that the labor laws of the land gives each and every worker the right to have representation at a hearing. The law of the land, the Constitution, gives each and every citizen, irrespective of their status, the right to have representation to defend themselves, any matter. You pointed to the permanent secretary informing the union by way of letter that your union would not be permitted to represent the lady. But the AG mentioned another body, not the body. Is there an MOU signed with what it is, TWAU?
There's an MOU signed by CTW in 2005, and that
Is that MOU still in?
well, it's right. All MOUs are really still in place until a new one.
Okay.
Thing. But during all of those times, even after all of those times, because of the nature of the public service union, and because it's a union that is recognized as representing public officers, a lot of the workers, even though during back in those times, maybe the public service union focused on the administrative staff. I don't know, because I wasn't there back then to understand those nuances. But since then, all public servants have joined the public service union. So whether they be lower salaried workers or not, they are members of the public service union. They're not paying subscription to CTW. These workers that we talk about are not paying. If one person is doing that, that may be the case, or another person, but the workers that we specifically speak about, identify, they only belong to one union. So even if you were to apply, because there is an agreement with CTW, as I say, if you go to the letter of the law with respect to that, then, and you tell me I cannot bargain for these group of workers because they fall under this collective agreement. The bargaining rights is what CTW would have the rights to. Your individual interests and your individual issues, you can choose whomever you want to represent them. And even in that light, the public service union have been bargaining for all public servants. When salary negotiation, which is the main thing, you don't have a submission by CTW or any other union. It is between the teachers union, the public service union, and the police welfare. We get together, we produce documents, we pay to have these studies done, and we make submissions to government. There's not a body who makes those, you understand what I'm saying? So even though they talk about that, and the nitty-gritty of it is, we also do the bargaining. But we don't even think about that. But the individual issues is what I actually focus on. So if the Attorney General wants to say that, that's fine. And I spoke to him personally, and I said, you seem not to understand people's constitutional rights and how you apply, you're the Attorney General, how you apply the law. There is nothing higher than my constitutional rights. It doesn't matter if you want to tell me 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 trade unions represent, it doesn't matter. My right is if I don't want to belong to that trade union, I don't. And I want to belong to this trade union, I do. And when I want to be represented, it is fundamentally my constitutional right to be represented. When you try and stop it, you are denying me my basic fundamental rights.
Have you tried, have that matter been resolved with the AG?
It has not been resolved. In fact, we had our lawyers, Jomo Thomas and Zita Barnwell, writing to the permanent secretary, copying the AG. They never got a response. Challenging that very same thing. They never got a response. That's why that matter is just...
So, regarding this matter, right, what exactly is the union, I know you're seeking redress for the worker, but what exactly is the redress that you're hoping to?
When we address this matter, Kenton, the worker had said at the time that an apology from the ministry would be fine. Okay, they had said an apology would be fine. We had asked the lawyers to address it. They would have written. We had asked them to take it to court, actually, and that has not been done, because in our consultation with regional lawyers a judge on the industrial court in Trinidad, we were advised that this is a matter that can be successfully challenged in the court. It never got to that place, and that is not as a result of us not wanting it to be there.
So there's not even mediation going on that particular matter
No.
to get it settled?
Nothing.
But all in all, Mr. Boucher, as we wind down, a number of issues have been raised in the press conference, where the printer is concerned and where that particular worker is concerned. and both of them pointing to one. And that's my words, and you can clarify it. People not having a clear understanding of the constitution of the state. 2, persons are ignorant of the various labor conventions. Or 3, persons probably seeking to overstep the powers of their office. What's your response to that?
It is possible that that is the case. I have concluded that heads of department, in many respects, do not understand the importance of the ILO convention and the fact that they are international laws and what it means for us to adhere to them, even though they are constantly being represented here through the Labor Department. ILO comes in from time to time. So they seem not to understand. If I assume that they do understand, I would agree with you that, in my view, they may think that they have positional power and sometimes political power. The CAPSET sits very close to the politician, so perhaps she has positional power by virtue of the fact that she's CAPSET. But sometimes public servants I've seen try to exercise political power because they are close to politicians and they think that they're acting on behalf of politicians. Even though the politicians did not ask them to do A or B, they often do that, right? And this abuse of power becomes a problem. I've seen it, I've experienced it in the public service from time to time. And the politicians sometimes don't even know that this is happening. Right? So that is the case. There is, for example, there's a case at Braxa. And this is a case in which we went down there where the workers there are in a pension plan. So they were told since 2021. The monies are being taken out. But there's no pension plan. Their monies are being taken out without their permission, but there is no pension plan. Now, the illegality of it is such that we went there, met with Mr. Bartholomew, explained to him, St. Vincent is a signatory to the Convention on the Protection of Wages. It is international law, it is binding on us. The convention states you cannot, except by law, deduct anything from my salary without my permission. Cannot. And what you are doing there is illegal. After 3 years, the workers have gone to, they say they were with Sagico, went to Sagico to check up on the plan, and there's no plan. The workers have never even signed an agreement. They don't know what is the nature of the plan. And the union said, listen, there's an agreement with you. There's a collective agreement with you that speaks to all of that. If you're going to do a pension plan, you need to do it in collaboration with the union so that the union can explain to the workers what they're getting. And I give examples of how we did it with the community college, who have a pension plan that the union is the one who put the plan to the workers and got an agreement on it, negotiated everything. Braxton just decided to deduct the workers' money illegally and been doing so for years, but there's no pension plan. Now that invites a lawsuit. And even though we spoke to them and tell them, send us all of the details with the proposals so that we can explain to the workers. A pension plan is good. So that we can explain to the workers what is it that is being offered and we can negotiate on their behalf. That's like a meeting that took place 2 months ago. And today we still do not have anything from Braxa, but the workers continue They continue to have their monies deducted and placed where they don't know. Who is getting the interest on it, they don't know. If they leave tomorrow, all of these money that have been deducted, what becomes of it? I mean, these are basic things that managers should know. And you tell them that this is what it is, and stop it, or bring the document to us so that we can examine it and get the workers on board, see where you are with it, and address it. And nothing, but they continue to deduct the workers' money in contravention of the ILO convention that protect wages. Basic. You can't take people's money out of their salary unless you sign and say, I agree for, to have you taking that money. Unless there's a law, like the NIS Act, that's a law that says that you can deduct. But unless there's a law, you can't do that.
The NIS Act, sorry.
Yeah,
speaks specific to what can be done.
Yes.
The Labour Act, I think it's 2001, if I recall clearly, unlike St. Lucia and other islands, you cannot reduce one salary, you cannot make deductions from one salary unless there is an agreement.
Precisely.
So even outside the ILO conventions, there are questions raised as to what the head of BRAXA, based on what you just said, is doing. So what is the union's next step on that?
Well, our next step, we have written to them again and asked to send the proposals, because the workers, we have to meet with the workers. The workers are asking for the meeting, but we can't have a meeting unless we have the proposal to explain to them. So our next step is, if you're not going to produce the proposal, which tells me that they don't have any. If you haven't sent any, that means I'm assuming that you don't have any. Then they need to stop the deductions. Like I said, having a pension plan is good.
Yeah.
It's good. But the way it is organized is a problem. And in most pension plans, the employer pay the greater share. In this case, I think the workers were saying, they were told when the plan start, it will be equal, something like 4-4-3. That is not the norm. The norm is in pension plans for the employer to pay the greater share and that sort of stuff.
Have you spoken to the accountant to get a report as to the amount of monies that has been deducted from the workers?
Yeah, we did. We met with the management, which included the CEO, Mr. Bartholomew, the human resource manager, Ms. Jessie May, and the accounts person, I can't remember what his name is.
Alexander.
Ms. Who? Alexander. And they promised to send us the documents within 2 weeks. We never got those documents. It's 2 months now.
Do we have any further questions? Okay.
Okay, on behalf of the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Public Service Union, I just want to thank you, the media houses, Searchlight, NBC Radio, Eyewitness News, Bay Hill Network, and Vincentian. Thank you guys for coming. And have a wonderful day, everybody.